Hello.
Harry,
Can you see me?
I got you. You got me?
I got you.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear?
Loud
Good.
and clear.
All right. I'm going to make a quick introduction. My editor will edit anything out that we want to, and I just want it to be like people are sitting here having a cup of coffee with us, okay? Today we have a prolific writer on parenting, and I'm really excited to share him with you and learn as well. It's Harry Harrison Jr., and I'm excited about talking with you today. Harry, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Harry, how'd you get started in writing about parenting?
Well, at first I got started in parenting, and
Okay.
being a dad, I guess around 1990 or so, there were not a lot of parenting books for dads especially. There were a lot of lengthy tomes for moms, and I remember my wife, Melissa, would be sitting on her side of the bed reading What to Expect When You're Expecting, and the child's first steps, and a child's first year, and all about cholera, and I mean, just a stack of books this high, and I'm reading Sports Illustrated. And she says, well, you need to read some of this stuff. And I said, well, you know it. It's not a problem. So our baby came, and I was absolutely in wondrous love, but clueless as to, oh my God, what do I do? Melissa, you read the books. So that was kind of like the inspiration. I'd always been a copywriter and had my own advertising agency, but raising the boys and then having a second boy and going through that and raising them, I just started kind of writing notes down. I would notice what parents whose children I admired, what they did. And someone said, well, did you do everything in this book? Like, did you do everything in this book? No. But I learned everything in that book. A lot of it I did. A lot of it I wish I had done. And so I got started. So I got started writing a book. The first book was called Father to Son. I think I have a copy of it here. Yeah. This is my first book, and I don't know if it shows up. And so this sold about 1.5 million copies, and to my amazement. And so it was written for dads. It was written for dads to kind of like take to the bathroom. And the sentences are real short, and it's like, remember, if you can't talk to your son about God, then you've never really talked to him. And that's the whole page. And I figured now I could explain that sentence for 5 pages, or a man can just read it and get it. And the editor and I had some disagreements, but I said, trust me, men will get it. They won't read that much about it, but they'll get it. So we did Father to Son, and it turned out men did get it, and men liked it a lot. And then the next book was Father to Daughter, and now I have 2 boys, so this could be called one of my greater works of fiction. But actually, I interviewed many dads of girls about this, and especially 5 or 6 of them whose daughters I would have proudly claimed as my own. And what's interesting about that is it was the same kind of format, and I gave the galleys to each dad to double check, and all of them hated the other father's ideas. You don't want your daughter playing sports. You never have your daughter in band. You'll never have your daughter in gymnastics. You want your daughter taking all the science. You never want her in science. So it's like, so I knew I had it right. Everybody disagreed.
Exactly.
Then mothers started calling workmen saying, well, look, we really like these books. We like the format. We'd like Harry to write some other books. And so the next 2 books were Mother to Daughter, which was a minefield I didn't sure I want to get into, and then Mother to Son. And the way we wrote these, and I'm sorry, my wife has just gotten off the interview with these. The way we wrote these is we would have coffee clutches with moms sitting around kitchen tables. We must have had 8 or 10 of them, and we'd have moms of newly born moms to pre-K, and then we'd have pre-K to 5th grade. Then we'd have 5th grade to to ninth grade, then ninth grade to high school, and their issues were different than the dad's issues. I mean, it's just that they just have different, but they bring different emotions to the table. They bring different ideas, and it's very interesting talking to them. I mean, and there were a lot of these days with the women where the whole table would just be crying, and I'd say, well, what do we feel about mean girls? And the whole table would burst out crying and sobbing, and I'd ask Melissa, what are you doing, Butcher? And they just had, I felt like Bob Newhart. You know Bob Newhart show. I just passed.
Exactly.
Next, they can go, okay, if we want to talk about that. But so a lot of good stuff came out of those books. A lot of wisdom came out of those books. So that's how I wrote the first 4 books, and then I got a contract with a Christian publisher named Thomas Nelson, and they wanted me to take them into using these kind of books to take them into mainstream stores. So I developed the 1001 series, like 1001 Things Every College Student Needs to Know, which is a huge seller, and it gets into the facts like you need to know living with your best friend from high school can make you wish you were living with your little sister. And the kids need to know this because I have it in my son. He went to live with his high school best friend, and they just wound up hating each other. And you need to know you won't have a private bathroom. In fact, you could share a bathroom with 20 or so people. So it kind of explains everything about going to college, things you need to know. So, and the motivation behind all my books is to prepare kids for adulthood. Right. And a lot of times that always means preparing the parents to prepare the kids for adulthood. And so, like with college, there's a 50% dropout rate the first year. I know at the University of Texas, the president will say at the introductory meeting, okay, look to your left, look to your right, both will be gone in 18 months. Mm-hmm. So why are these kids who scored 1,200 or I guess now 1,900 on the SATs, why are they dropping out? Why can't they finish? Why do some of them not go to college? Why do some of them turn to meth and turn to coke and can't cope in the world? And that's what really fascinated me about how even upper demographic parents who are thinking these kids are given every opportunity in the world, why are they failing at the same rate as minority students who've been given very little in the world? So that's been the motivation behind all my books.
When was the first publishing of your books? What year was that?
1998.
1998.
Yeah.
What difference have you seen in parenting in 1998 versus your most recent book, Fearless Parenting? Have you seen a difference?
I think things have gotten worse in terms of what my book was, Father to Son, was all about. Was that, and again, all my books have been about is raising children to face the world. And the more we do for them, the less they're prepared. And we're making our kids today parent dependent instead of independent. And I think that in a rush to be the best mommy on the block and give out the most gold stars and do the biggest happy faces on lunchboxes, we're not preparing them for the world. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's all we're focused on is our child's happiness, and we're so focused on our child's immediate happiness, we're not thinking of the long-term goals of their ability to cope 13 years later. And that's why we have so many, almost 50% adult kids now living at home. And you can blame that on the economy, but when you spend $200,000 majoring in dance or music appreciation, jobs aren't there. And and the parents have done that to themselves. So now you have 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds living at home and watching TV while the parents go off to work. And all the parents, they only have themselves to kick. This is what and we're graduating students from high school today, or in college, who honestly believe that they are going to assume their parents' lifestyle when they graduate. That I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to make $100,000 a year. I'm going to have a pool. I'm going to have a BMW. Life's going to be sweet. It's going to be like MTV. And they honestly believe that. And I think colleges are kind of like trumping their heads, filled with just this craziness of it. You do this, you'll start at $50,000 a year. I mean, my son was stunned at his starting salary, and he was offered like 28. He just, that was his best offer. And he was just like, he couldn't believe it. He thought he'd start at 50. And I said, where did you get this idea people start at 50? I started at 75 a week. I mean, where'd you start at 50,000 a year? So we're graduating kids into a world that doesn't exist. And then when they get there, they're not prepared for it. And this is why you see like so many colleges sending students who graduated from good high schools and were accepted into Notre Dame or accepted in University of Michigan or accepted in UT, University of Texas. While you're seeing these kids sent to remedial English and remedial math so they can compete on a college level because we haven't prepared them to.
Which brings me to your book, your latest book, Fearless Parenting, and I downloaded that this week, and I couldn't put it down. It is absolutely, everybody that's listening to this needs to go to your website, and we'll talk about that later, about how they can do that, but they need to buy it. It is absolutely great. There's so many nuggets in there. It's an absolutely great read. You talk about parents trying to be friends with their children. What's the danger of that?
Well, and I'm sure you've seen it too. And it's like, I don't know when this friend thing started. When my father wasn't my friend, but somewhere along the line we've decided that we want to be. I think, and I hate to lay this off on moms, but I think moms decided they want to be best friends with their daughters in the beginning. And dads kind of thought, well, I should probably be best friends with my son. So the problem is that when a child absolutely has to be parented, he's been caught cheating at school. He's been caught shoplifting something. He's cussing his parents out. He's refusing to go to bed. He's becoming arrogant and difficult to control. He doesn't understand his best friend grounding him or punishing him or sending him to his bedroom. They're totally confused about who we are. So I remember an instance when my oldest son was in 7th grade, and I forget what he did, but I was very unhappy with him, and so I grounded him and just said, you're done for 6 weeks. You have me and your mom, but you have this room. And he said at the time, I thought you were my best friend, and I said, I've never been your best friend. I said, I've always been your father, and that's clarified a relationship. Best friends don't send their kids, don't pay for their kids to go to college. Best friends don't buy their friends cars. Best friends don't pace the halls at night in a hospital worried about them. Best friends don't rush them off to the doctor when they're throwing up at 3 a.m. Best friends don't talk to them about God or about morality, about sex, about drugs, and the way they should be talked to about it. So there's a real danger of so you see a lot of moms who are their daughter's best friend, and they begin dressing like they're 15 again. You have a lot of 40-year-old moms dressing like their daughters, and it used to be the daughters dressed like the moms, but now we have moms dressing like the daughters, and so it's this desire to be our children's friend that is one of the biggest problems, because if we're their friend, then we can't possibly discipline. We can't possibly give them guide rules for living. We can't possibly tell them what to do, because best friends don't do that. Best friends don't tell each other don't drink. Best friends tell each other, hey, let's drink that bottle that's in this guy's closet.
You also talk in your book about happiness isn't a goal. That's a radical statement to some parents, because they want their children to be happy at all costs. Therefore, I think it weakens them if you're giving them too much.
I gave a speech to a real highly rated school out on the other side of Fort Worth, very highly rated school, and it was just to the teachers and the administrators, and it was on excellence. And I told them that growing up, happiness is the enemy of excellence. That if your child's always happy, then report cards don't matter. A parent goes, "Oh, it's okay, I'll go argue with the teacher." If your child's always happy, then success doesn't matter. A job doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Being honorable doesn't matter. Being loyal doesn't matter. Going to church doesn't matter. Because they're always just, we want to raise the happiest kids on the block. That's our goal. We lose perspective on what we should be teaching our kids about honor, integrity, and hard work and prayer and things that bring happiness. Happiness is a result of living. It's not a goal you can just say, "Well, I'm gonna be happy today." It's a result of the way we live our lives, continual happiness. And you can tell, you can, I mean, my wife, who still teaches, I mean, kids will come in and go, "I'm not happy with Mrs. Johnson. She assigned me 5 pages of homework." And it's like, well, Mrs. Johnson's job isn't to make you happy. But the kids think it is.
Right.
So,
to be entertained.
Or the parents will come up to school. Yeah, parents will come up to school and talk about how their kids aren't happy. And everybody wonders, what does that matter? It's school. But parents have such an emphasis on our kids being happy. I mean, so we throw, we throw like $1,000 birthday parties for a 1-year-old. It's just insane.
In fact, I published an article last week on my website about wealthy parents taking their kids to Disney World and hiring people to stand in line, paying $1,000 a day for somebody to stand in line for their child. And I'm like, how crazy can we get?
I didn't even know we were that crazy. That's insane.
Exactly.
That's insane. My wife she has taught at schools for the very, very, very wealthy, schools for the inner city, and schools kind of in the middle. And she really believes that there's no difference in terms of being looked after and loved and cared for between an extremely wealthy child and an extremely poor child. She's had kids pull up in limousines from very wealthy parents that the city would know without shoes.
Really?
The mom never saw them. They never saw their moms. So they never ate breakfast. They never got their shoes on. So the school teachers have had to feed this kid and send somebody home to get his shoes. So seeing this, you see the same thing with the very poor students. I mean, they don't have books. They don't have their homework done. They don't have anything done. That's because the parents aren't there. The parents don't care. Very wealthy parents are in Paris or London or whatever, and so they're not there to parent their kids. So you would think you'd see a great deal of difference, but you really don't. They're both getting the same miserable kind of parenting. Yeah. So it's the idea of paying $1,000 because we don't want you to suffer and stand in line is telling us. I mean, the day comes when that child has to stand in line.
What's
he going to do?
Yes.
He's
Harry,
not going to do it, but get mad about it. Standing in line to register. That's going to be a problem. Standing in line to register for college.
Exactly. I don't want to give everything away in your book Fearless Parenting, but I do want to talk briefly about work. And would you share the story about your son sitting on the sofa and saying he was bored and you found a job for him? Harry? Did I lose you?
Well, our oldest, our sons teenagers will, I'm here, I can see you. You see me?
Okay. I got you.
Hello? Whoop.
Yeah,
okay.
I can see you.
So, if you can see me, that's probably more important. But I can see you.
I can see you. I don't know why you can't see me.
I can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Teenagers will do, as all humans will do, I guess, the least possible amount of work to get by. And so if you can lay on the couch and your mom brings you dinner and your dad gives you gas money and you can watch TV, and why go to work? So this is what I have learned. Mothers and fathers fight over this the most. And dads want their children to go to work, where moms want to keep their kids happy. And this is just a general statement, and I know in some households it's different, but generally speaking, dads are the ones that are saying, get them out of the house, get them a job, I'm sick of this. And moms are going, oh, they're tired from school, poor little babies. And it really causes fights among parents. And what moms who are watching need to understand that especially when it comes to boys, dads want to raise young men. They don't want to raise young boys. And I would tell my sons this: I'm not raising boys here. I'm raising young men. I'm raising men to face the world. So I'm not going to put up with this crap. One of them not working. So my oldest son came home and said he was too tired. He was too tired to work. And I should send him to some island. To Mexico for vacation. And I said, you have lost your mind. He said, I've had just a hell of a year. I said, I've had a hell of a year putting you through TCU. What do you mean you need a vacation? Anyway, so he laid down on the couch, and his mother was saying, you shouldn't be on him about a job all the time. And I said, okay, fine. So she was going to work every morning, and she got up one morning, and Sage was still asleep. He was still asleep at about 7 or 8. She made him breakfast. He didn't come down the stairs to eat it. And she went off to work, and she came back, and he was still in bed about 4. Well, finally, I had an ally. She came stomping in and said, that's it. I've been arguing with your father over this for 2 days now. And she got him up. She took him to the mall and took him into Bed Bath and Beyond. And she said, are you people hiring? And they said, yes. Well, you have an employee. And my son was, what? What happened to my summer? And I just knew this was going to explode. And so she came in and she said, I will not work all summer while he would sit on his butt all summer and tell me how tired he is. And I said, I can't imagine why you feel that way. So they learned to work, even if they would try and buffalo their moms, and boys especially will work their moms over. But at some point, even my wife got it that he had to go to get. He still remembers that time. He still regards it as the most horrible time in his life. And he's a private equity banker now. He still thinks that was the most horrible time in his life.
We talk a lot about self-esteem for young people.
Yeah.
And we think it's about encouraging them and giving them little sticky notes and various motivational methods. What do you think is the best way to
I think if I see one more sticky note smiley face, my head is going to explode. That's 10 seconds of being a parent. Taking a sticky note and slapping it on a lunchbox, or a sticky note and putting it on. There's moms that compete for gold stars. How many gold stars can they give their kids that week? And you're a gold star for sitting quiet and watching TV, and you get a gold star for not hitting your sister. And I think all that's just crazy. As parents, we don't need to be ashamed. And in fact, we need to make demands of our children that always are encouraging them to grow up. A sticky note every now and then, sure, that's fine. But every day, by the 5th day, that sticky note has lost its value, and that gold star's lost its value. And the kids know it's crazy, and they know that mom means nothing by it. And we're teaching them that there should always be a reward for doing the job that they're supposed to do. And the problem with all these sticky notes is the kids get out of school, or they get a job in high school, and they show up on time, and They do what they're supposed to do, maybe bag groceries or maybe take inventory or maybe just get by the sales counter. And then when it's done, they're wondering where the sticky note is. I'm not kidding about this. They go get their first real job out of college. They go to a bank or a finance company or to an insurance company, and they want to know why they're not celebrated for showing up to work on time. And they feel demeaned, and they feel disrespected in the word. They feel like they just don't mean anything because nobody's telling them every day, you're doing such a great job showing up at work on time and knowing where your pencils are and wearing a dress or pants. And we train them to do that when they're young, to expect rewards for doing what they're supposed to do to begin with. And the kids that don't get these sticky notes all the time, the kids that just, there's no reward for doing your job right, you just do your job right, they're the ones who succeed because they're not expecting these dumb little rewards. Or there's some companies, and I'm not making this up, there's some companies that have happiness counselors, and their job is to go around the company. Now, this all may have evaporated after 2008. Before 2008, their job was to go around the company and hand out smiling faces to people who were doing good jobs, what they deemed good jobs, and to have parties on Friday that would celebrate, we're winners, and this kind of thing. And everybody over 40 was going, this is the craziest crap we've ever seen in our life. But it encouraged the kids to stay. And of course, I mean, that stuff ended in 2008. And kids wonder why there's no more sticky notes. Why there's no more smiling faces. They're showing up to work on time. And it doesn't encourage them to do that mile extra to go to become more full or more successful or more educated, because there's no sticky notes involved after a certain age. So we're doing our kids this huge service by teaching them that for just doing their job, just for not hitting their sister, just for studying, just for bringing home a 100, that a smiley face and a sticky note and all that stuff is what they deserve and what they'll get. And then some parents just do it because their kids aren't making hundreds, aren't making good grades. They'll just start giving sticky notes for trying. And so, okay, you get all this praise and lauding for trying. And what I think, and I touch on this in the book, is that we don't want our children to suffer. We think suffering is the worst thing our child can do, that it makes us horrible parents for our child to suffer. And in this book, in this talk I gave to the school, I said that happiness is the enemy of excellence. Suffering is a friend of excellence. That if we can teach our children to suffer by teaching them to study 3 days, 4 days before the test is due, to suffer by starting their paper 2 weeks early, suffering by doing their chores, suffering by being nice to the aunt they can't stand, suffering by praying, and even if they don't feel God and they think their parents are crazy, drag them off to Sunday school, drag them off to church, get them used to doing things they don't want to do. Right. And if we can teach our kids to suffer and to accept it and overcome it when they're 7, man, we have done them. They are so ready for the adult world when they're 22 because they're prepared to suffer. And it's the kids that aren't prepared to suffer that are living at home in their old bedroom with their old cartoon figures on the wall.
Harry, in every locker room in America, practically, there's a sign up on the wall that says "No pain, no gain." So why do we feel like that we need to remove pain from our child's lives? What can we do? How can we change this? I call it a tsunami that's coming because it's not coming to fruition. Expert after expert have told me how college kids today they get off to college and they don't know how to make a decision. They're still attached to mom and dad through a cell phone or through texting, and it's a real problem. How do we turn the tide with that?
Well, obviously the parents are going to have to turn the tide, and it always comes back, and that's called. I mean, we have to accept the fact that when our kids suffer, we might suffer. When they're crying, we can't. Our first response is, well, I got to cry. I got to go talk to the teacher. I got to play with the principal. I've got to talk to a judge. I've got to talk to the coach and help him understand my child is special. And as parents, we need to understand it's okay for kids to suffer and that it's okay for us to suffer. Well, we will feel bad. Part of parenting is watching your kids fail and cry and suffer. And we have to understand that by letting our kids suffer, the thing that we can teach them instead of trying to take away the suffering is the best thing we can teach them is how to overcome suffering, how to achieve, how to overcome it. And, but that takes time, that takes parenting, and that means not racing off the golf course, not staying on Facebook or cell texting your friends. It means really being a parent and teaching your kids how to overcome suffering. It's like in the frontier days where Dad would take his kids out and show them how to shoot a deer or raccoon, skin it, and eat it. There's just things our kids have to learn, and maybe it gets messy and the girl cries about having to rip open a deer's gut, but she learns. You got to do this to eat, to stay alive. Right. We have taken that whole mentality as parents away that we think it makes us better parents. And I'm not sure if I can blame this on TV or Hollywood or just on us, just on our generation. But we think it makes us better parents for our children not to suffer, and it makes us worse parents. And for them to change, we have to change. And we really have to understand the value of suffering, that suffering leads to excellence. It leads to them overcoming. It leads to them learning different ways of conquering a problem. It leads to them learning. I know of a woman who went up to a school for the ADD dyslexics, ADD, ADHD, and told her son's teacher, the kid had a 30 in English, told her son's teacher there was no reason he wasn't going to be a doctor. The teacher didn't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
That she honestly believed he was going to be, and she would encourage him and tell him he was going to be a doctor, and instead of saying, let's figure out what you really can do, because they're saying maybe reading isn't your thing, math may be your thing, but
right.
But we're so tied to our kids' feelings. It's like if they hurt, we hurt. If they're happy, we're happy, and we're like codependent on their happiness. And if we can learn to be happy when they're suffering, we've done a major thing.
Harry, has your research found, are we doing that out of fear? Are we fearful that we won't be the best parents? Is that what we're trying to become? Are we trying to be the perfect family, the perfect parent, or?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that what I've learned is that every parent wants to be the perfect parent, and we judge our perfection on our child being happy, and so if we say our kid's miserable, then that must make us a terrible parent. And we have to understand that we can't judge our parenthood what the child is at 6 or how happy he is at 8. We need to wait 25 or 30 years to judge our parenthood. And without a doubt, I mean, my kids are now in their early 30s, and their friends are in their early 30s. Without a doubt, the kids that were made to work during the summer, that were made to do their homework on time, that were made to apologize to teachers, that they knew they would catch, if they caught hell from a teacher, the devil was waiting for them at home. And every one of those kids are successful. And the kids that didn't have to work, didn't have to suffer, were told they were special even though they were making 10s. And I am serious that
they are 30 years old and living with their mothers because they've always been special. My son's too special to work. My wife has seen parents come up and demand the test the day before the test was to be given. She's seen parents come up and demand answers be changed because their child could not afford a 64 or else he'd be thrown off band or football. She's seen parents demand a teacher to be fired because the teacher caught their child cheating. I mean, parents don't want their kids to suffer. So as parents, we have to be able to suffer. We have to be able to suffer along with our kids. But more importantly, I think, Chuck, is that we need to realize it's okay for our kids to suffer.
Right.
It's normal. It's part of the human equation. And we can still go out and have a good time with our wives. Our kids can be home crying over a failed test. Well, if that's what they have to do is cry, next test that comes by, they'll start picking up a book. And if we say, no, we're not going to go talk to the teacher. No, we're not going to solve this problem for you. No, we're not going to go yell at the coach for benching you. No, we're not going to go. We'll take you to the courtroom and we'll sit there while the judge dresses you down. But you're going to wear a suit and tie and you're going to speak professionally to him. The more opportunities we give them to grow up, they will grow up. But it's like we can't stand to see our children suffer, and that's what is the problem. So that's why it's about fearless parenting.
You know, and it's infiltrated to the college level. I was interviewing a guy last week, and today 61% of the college students receive A's in college. So it's infiltrated because parents are putting so much pressure on universities for their kids to get good jobs, and they have to have good grades, supposedly.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. There's only, now let me get this straight. The hardest school in the United States in terms of mandatory course requirements, in terms of grading, and in terms of number of papers required. The hardest school in the United States is the U.S. Military Academy. It is it's the only school with a curfew, and is the only school that will fail you out instantly if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
But they have the highest rate of graduation. So colleges, to my amazement, have dumbed down. So now the employers get these kids, and they're useless to them. And so everyone wonders, why are the 25-year-olds and under the least employed generation? It's because they don't know anything. They know how not to suffer. I mean,
least of all, they're not problem solvers.
They're not problem solvers. They don't look for new ways to accomplish things. They'll call mom and dad, but they don't invent new technologies, invent new way to do things, solve problems, go around the accepted method. That's too hard for them. They've never been asked to do that. So it's no mystery to me why they're the highest unemployed generation.
Harry, I love the statement you made earlier when you said that you're not judged an excellent parent by what your 7-year-old does. It's what 25, 30 years from now, that's how you see what your parenting skills were like. And that was a profound statement. I love that. This book that you've written, every parent needs to have it in their hand because it's a guidebook. It's a guidebook from mistakes I've made as a parent and things that I wish I could go back and redo. I can't. But it's wisdom that you've handed down that's outstanding.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, it's one of those books where I love to say I knew all that instantly. And
don't we all?
But I did learn it eventually.
Right. How can people go buy the book and tell them how to get to your website? I'll put a link when we put this interview up. I'll put a link to your website as well. But tell people how they can go and buy the book.
They can go to fearlessparenting.com, and it's on the front page, and they can buy either the Kindle or they can buy the PDF. And they just click on to buy, And if they are just downloaded to the computer, they'll be taken to another screen to actually make the purchase. Then they'll be taken to another screen to put in a code, and then they'll have it. So it's like a 2-step process, 3-step process.
It's real simple. I bought the PDF one. It's great. I can open it up, go back and highlight it, read it whenever. But the Kindle, I'm sure it's just as easy a method as well. So it's a great read. People need to go and buy that book. They need it in their hand.
I really appreciate that. I think I told you that I got an email from a principal of a Christian school in Cairo who ordered 80 copies for her parents, and she said,
Wow.
"My parents need to learn these things." So it's not like a U.S. problem.
Yeah.
Felt like the parents in Egypt. There's a war going on over there. She felt like the parents in Egypt were being too easy on their kids and letting them get away with murder. So
I didn't know that, Harry, until I interviewed a lady that was talking about, they call American parents helicopter parents, but she said it's a worldwide problem. She said in Norway they call them curling parents, and they're sweeping the ice in front of curling, the sport curling, and they're sweeping the ice in front of their children.
Yeah.
So it's an international problem. Harry,
it is, and we think, well, gosh, our kids are.
Yeah. Harry, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll put your information up on your website. You've got a great blog.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and you have a good day.
And for boomers, thank you so much. Same to you, and I really appreciate this time.
Thank you a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.